Hey there, I'm Josh, and I finally have my system set up for the infrared remote control servo. So here y'all are. Alright, so pretty much I used the servo into the 9-pin here and the IRR infrared receiver into the 2-pin here. And as per the instructions, I have everything set up so that it works properly. So if I press on, well, it would center, so that's not helpful. That sends it that way, and sends it that way. That one gives you piece by piece. This one gives you piece by piece. Then the power button centers it, as per the instructions. Other than that, I have the code set up right here, and I did research and figure out the case-based system. So first off, I included the libraries that we needed for the infrared remote receiver system, as well as the servo library. And right after that, I defined my pins for my infrared and servo. And then I proceeded to define the keys that you press on the remote here so that you can easily understand how they switch and how we maneuver them, as well as some simple systems here to make sure it moves 90 degrees or 5 degrees depending on the system, or depending on which button is pressed, which makes sense. Other than that, I have my setup for the servo here for positions, base position basically when it starts, when it turns on, so that's not a problem. Then I have my setup here where I name my pins, which is pretty straightforward as far as it goes, as well as a print line here so that it's a little easier to read at the very end. Next I went on to make a function here with a boolean that switches true false depending on, how it goes, like you would, and it's a switch. And I researched how to do all this, and it took me quite a while to figure out, just because it was quite a different system with a little bit of a different notation, which I did have some trouble with, but I noted that in my problems. And it's basically set it to a certain degree if you press a certain button, which, as far as it goes, real straightforward, but it does depend on what button you press that I defined up here. So that makes a lot of sense. Other than that, then I had the print lines. I had an if just to make sure it breaks everything at the end, or functions as if it isn't working at certain positions. I do have my normal print lines there. I just have it set up that it just didn't that last time. It has been. And that would set certain degrees and, increments, up, down, position specifically, which makes sense. And then we have a final statement here that just prints and makes it easy to read. For our void loop position, or section, I should say, it's simply that we're decoding their signals from the receiver, getting them, determining which button is pushed, and then if it's a certain button that has a code connected to it, we run that code and it does it that way. And then sets it. This was also for the previous one that I was doing, that basically gives me the code for what each one was. Yeah, easy enough, and we have it all set up to work perfectly, and then this loop runs, which runs these ifs, and I don't know if I need to go in more detail. But yeah, it seems simple enough to me. Thanks.